Late March at the nursery feels like a rush of abundance. Boxes arriving, plants waking up, benches filling faster than we expected. And every spring I ask myself the same question. Where are we going to put all of this? And yet, even in the scramble, something quiet happens. Each tray, each plant, they all find their place, like old friends showing up at a family dinner. When people talk about successful gardens, they usually mean more. More plants, more harvest, more blooms. This week, standing among trays and pots of barely emerging hostas, shrubs, and perennials, I realized somewhere along the way, the garden picked up the same pressure life carries. Comparison, productivity, performance. Gardens became scorecards, and yes, I fell into that trap too. The nursery makes it even worse, although the garden has been showing me something different. Not fewer plants, not bigger harvests, but a different way of seeing abundance. Before we go any further, let me introduce myself. I am Michelle, and this space is a lot like gardening. Some things take hold right away, others take time, and a few surprise us entirely. Hostas, gardens, friendships. If you're craving a quieter, more reflective way to think about gardening, you're always welcome here at Hosta Heaven. Subscribing makes it easier to return. And today, I want to talk about something gardeners feel, but rarely articulate. Abundance. Right now at the nursery, abundance looks like logistics. Perennials are arriving, shrubs are waking up from winter, hostas are beginning to show signs of life with those tiny little points. We walk through rows of plants we overwintered, we count trays, we check labels. We're trying to figure out what survived winter and what didn't. And then the new shipments arrive and suddenly our benches are full again. Actually, probably fuller than we planned. Last year we added new display benches and we still ran out of space. At one point we were putting plants in the aisles of the growing area. Not the nursery, the growing area. We were just trying to find a place for everything. And this year, it's looking suspiciously similar. Because here's the thing. When you work around plants every day, you know it. You see something beautiful, and the thought immediately pops into your head. Ooh, I like that. I say, I like that. I bet customers will too. And suddenly, another tray has arrived. Another variety, another plant that deserves a place somewhere. In that moment, I noticed something quietly satisfying. The joy isn't in adding more. It's in making room, welcoming what's new, and remembering the friends we've met in past gardens, even those we haven't seen in years. So if anyone thinks I'm here preaching restraint, yeah, that's not happening. If anything, the nursery constantly tests my belief that there's always room for one more plant. Because honestly, plants are a lot like people in my life. There's always room to make the circle a little bigger. But somewhere in the middle of all this abundance, I've noticed something. The temptation isn't just to grow beautiful plants. It's to measure success by quantity. More varieties, more trays, more inventory. Gardeners feel a version of this too. Maybe not with benches of plants, but with garden beds, or harvest baskets, or collections. If I spend enough time around gardeners, I'll hear it. I hear it from everyone eventually. How many varieties do you have? Ooh, you must get so much produce from this garden. Or someone visits and says, wow, you must have 100 plants. Hostas. And none of that is wrong. Gardens are beautiful when they're full. But I noticed something happening quietly inside my own thinking. I started counting. I was counting plants, varieties, space. I once had a moment in a garden at our old house that made me smile, and it makes me smile still. Auntie Mary gave me part of her hosta. I think it was Undulata albomarginata. I planted it in the only open space left in the bed. It was relatively ordinary, not anything truly outstanding, but a lovely, lovely hosta. That should have been the end of the story, except once it was in the ground for a season, it was just a little too close to the brunnera. Not dramatically, just enough that my brain couldn't let it go. I didn't see room for it to grow. There wasn't enough room after all. I stood staring at it, tilting my head a little, doing the gardener's version of geometry, and eventually I decided the brunnera needed to move 10 inches to the left. Exactly 10 inches. Well, maybe not. Maybe it was 9 or 8. There wasn't really any room to spare in that garden. Thankfully, my husband is amazing. He grabbed the shovel, lifted the brunnera, and moved it 10 inches, or maybe only 8 or 9. And suddenly, everything felt right again. Looking back now, I realized something. I wasn't trying to treat my garden like a suitcase. I wasn't just trying to see how much I could shove in there. But not long after that moment, I ended up creating an entirely new garden bed. Because apparently, when we gardeners run out of space, we don't stop. We just expand the map. The garden has so many ways to reveal abundance. Every summer we grow tomatoes. Not a lot, and really, I say we, but my husband grows them. We just have a few plants, and every year, without fail, we end up with more tomatoes than we can possibly eat. And that's saying something, because during tomato season, we eat tomatoes with every meal. Yes, even breakfast. I had tomatoes with my breakfast today, although from the grocery store and not from the garden. We love fresh slices. We enjoy grape tomatoes, tomatoes with our salad and our sandwiches, and even tomato sandwiches. We give some away, we freeze a few. We don't can them. I know a lot of gardeners do, and I admire that. But I also know myself well enough to admit that I'm a bit too lazy for canning. Or maybe I have other priorities, more important things to do out in the garden. Besides, what I really love about tomatoes is the fresh tomato, still warm from the sun if possible. Sometimes abundance isn't producing more, it's realizing you already have so much to enjoy. And I see this in the shade garden too. There's a hosta in one part of a garden bed that slowly became a presence. Year after year, it spread quietly, not dramatically, just steadily, until one day I realized something. That single hosta now fills the space where I'd once imagined several plants. Now I don't want to add anything more. I want to see the humpback whale my mother gave me take all the space it needs as it comes to its own. The longer I garden, the more I see this pattern. The plants that stay with us the longest aren't always the ones we add in excitement. They're the ones that slowly claim their place. The hydrangea that finally settles into its stride. The peony that takes years before blooming like it means it. Or the hosta that quietly anchors that whole garden bed. And that's where the distinction begins to appear for me. Abundance in gardening isn't really about collecting more, even though collecting can be really joyful. Abundance in the garden is about rootedness, about having the time and the relationships to become what they were meant to become. Hosta collectors understand this better than most people realize, even the hosta collectors. Because when you talk to the collectors, you eventually notice something. The collections aren't about the plants. They're about the people, the stories of people coming together. The gardeners you meet, the plants you trade, the varieties you love. The stories shared across garden beds and garden clubs. The friendships that form around a shared fascination with leaves and shade and soil. The hostas become the connection point, but the abundance is the community. The older I get as a gardener, the more I think abundance is different than we expect and imagine. Yes, sometimes it looks like benches overflowing with plants in April. Sometimes it looks like tomatoes or zucchini. We can't possibly finish it all. Sometimes it looks like a hosta or a shrub anchoring an entire corner of the garden. But underneath all of that, abundance might simply be things taking root, deeply enough to grow into a relationship with the soil, with the garden, and with the people like us who gather around it. If you've ever stood in your garden and felt that quiet sense of completeness, not because everything was perfect and bountiful, but because something unexpected had taken root, you had found your people, you're not alone. In my experience, this is how gardeners view their gardens, even if you don't realize it yet. If the garden is where you contemplate what life really reveals, you're always welcome here at Hosta Heaven. Until the next chapter, in the Hosta Garden.